The alarm screamed through the command center of Thraxis Prime, the capital station of the Vexrian Galactic Empire. Commander Silrake stood before the massive viewing screen, his 4 eyes narrowing at the data streaming across the display. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "Report," he barked at the sensor officer. The young Vexrian's scales rippled with nervousness. "Sir, we have detected an energy signature approaching from Sector 794. The readings are unusual." Silrake moved closer to the console. In his 300 years of service, he had seen every type of vessel the galaxy had to offer. The Empire had conquered 200 species. He knew their ships, their weapons, their tricks. But this signature made no sense. "Unusual how?" he demanded. "The mass readings suggest a vessel at least 3 kilometers in length, sir. But the energy output is unlike anything in our database. It doesn't match any known propulsion system." Silrake laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. "A sensor malfunction. Run a diagnostic." "Already done, sir. 3 times. The readings are accurate." The commander's amusement faded. He pulled up the sector map. Sector 794 was at the edge of explored space, bordering a region they had catalogued decades ago. A primitive species lived there. Humans, they called themselves. They hadn't even achieved faster-than-light travel yet. The Empire had marked them as a potential labor source for future conquest. Nothing more. "Identify the vessel's origin," Silrake ordered. The sensor officer worked quickly, his claws tapping against the controls. "Sir, the trajectory traces back to the 3rd planet in the Sol system. Earth." Silence fell over the command center. Every officer turned to look at their commander. Silrake felt a strange sensation in his chest, something he hadn't experienced in years. Was it concern? No. Impossible. He pushed the feeling aside. "Those primitives barely have chemical rockets," he said, his voice firm. "This must be some kind of natural phenomenon. A rogue asteroid caught in a spatial anomaly." Perhaps, but even as he spoke, he knew it wasn't true. The signature was too controlled, too precise. Whatever was coming toward Imperial space was a ship. A very large ship. Meanwhile, far across the void of space, Captain Jiho Kwon sat in the command chair of the Taeguki and tried not to show his fear. Around him, the bridge hummed with activity. Displays showed star charts, system diagnostics, and the faces of his crew. Each one looked as nervous as he felt. "Distance to the border?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. Lieutenant Taeyong-an checked his console. 40,000 kilometers, sir. We'll cross into what the locals claim as their territory in approximately 20 minutes. Jiho nodded. 20 minutes. 20 minutes until humanity made contact with an alien civilization for the first time. He wished he felt more confident about their chances. Dr. Yuna Park approached from the science station, her tablet clutched tightly in her hands. "Captain, I'm reading the quantum weave shields at 98% efficiency. All systems are stable. And if they're not stable when we need them?" Jiho asked quietly. Yuna met his eyes. They had known each other since university. They had worked together on the Taeguki project for 5 years. She understood his concern. "Then we'll find out very quickly if my theories were correct." That wasn't reassuring. The Taeguki was humanity's greatest achievement and its biggest gamble. While other species had developed faster-than-light travel through conventional means, humans had taken a different path. Their scientists had stumbled upon quantum tunneling technology, a way to move through space that didn't require traditional engines. They had built weapons and shields based on principles that seemed to break the known laws of physics. On paper, the Taeguki was invincible. In practice, none of it had been tested in real combat. They were flying into unknown territory on untested technology, hoping to make peaceful contact with an empire that ruled the galaxy through military might. Back on Earth, Admiral Hana Choi watched the mission unfold from the command center in Seoul. The massive screen before her showed the Taegukji's position relative to the border. Behind her, dozens of officers monitored every aspect of the ship's journey. Admiral, we're receiving telemetry from Captain Kwan, her communications officer reported. All systems nominal. They will reach the border in 15 minutes. Hana nodded but said nothing. She had argued against this mission. Not because she didn't believe in the technology, but because she knew how first contact could go wrong. Humanity was revealing itself to an empire that had crushed every species it encountered. If things went badly, Earth had 19 more ships, like the Taegukji. That was their entire fleet. The Vexrians reportedly had thousands of warships. Ma'am, another officer spoke up. We're detecting movement in the border region. Multiple vessels, at least 50, converging on the Taegukji's projected position. Hana's jaw tightened. Get me, Captain Kwan. On the Taegukji, Jiho heard the alert at the same time. His sensor officer called out. Captain, we have company. 52 vessels, all matching known Vexrian warship configurations. They're taking up positions directly in our path. Stop our advance, Jiho ordered. Hold position 1,000 kilometers from the border. Open all communication channels. Let's see if they want to talk. Taeyang worked his console. Channels open, sir. Broadcasting on all frequencies, in their language. Admiral Hana's face appeared on a small screen beside Jiho's chair. Captain, be very careful. We don't know their protocols. Understood, Admiral. Jiho took a breath and began speaking. This is Captain Jiho Kwan of the Earth vessel Taegukji. We come in peace, seeking to establish diplomatic relations and trade partnerships. We mean no harm and respect your territorial boundaries. We request permission to meet with your representatives to begin peaceful negotiations. The message transmitted into space, translated into Vexrian by their computers. On Thraxis Prime, Commander Silrake heard every word. His officers stared at him, waiting for orders. They speak our language, one of them whispered. How? Silrake didn't answer. He was looking at the updated sensor readings. The human ship had stopped exactly at the border, not 1 meter inside Imperial space. That showed either respect or caution. But the ship itself was massive. Its energy signature made his best Dreadnought look like a shuttlecraft. Send a response, he finally said. Standard protocol. The message that came back made Jiho's blood run cold. Unidentified vessel. You are approaching Imperial space. Your presence here is unauthorized. You will power down all systems and submit to boarding immediately. Resistance will result in your destruction. You have 5 minutes to comply. Yuna looked at Jiho. That's not exactly the friendly welcome we hoped for. Well, welcome we hoped for. Welcome we hoped for. Taeyang's hands moved to the weapons console. Captain, they're charging weapons. All 52 ships. Jiho closed his eyes for a moment. They had come in peace. They had followed every first contact protocol. And now, they were seconds away from a battle that could determine the fate of Earth. All hands, battle stations, he said quietly. Activate defensive systems. Do not fire unless fired upon. Let's hope these shields work as well as Dr. Park promises. The Taegukji's quantum weave shields hummed to life, creating a field that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. On every ship in the Vexrian fleet, alarms began to sound as their sensors detected energy readings they couldn't explain. Commander Silrake stared at his display, watching the impossible numbers climb higher. What had these humans built? And more importantly, what would happen when they tested it against Imperial firepower? Sir, his weapons officer said nervously. Orders? Silrake's pride wouldn't let him back down. Not from primitives, not in front of his crew. Fire warning shot. Let's see how tough their ship really is. The plasma lance cut through space like a knife through water. It was beautiful in a terrible way. A stream of superheated matter that could vaporize a city in seconds. On the bridge of the Taegukji, every eye watched it come closer. Impact in 3 seconds. Taeyang called out, his voice surprisingly calm. 2, 1. The lance struck the shield's dead center. For a moment, the entire ship was bathed in brilliant blue light. Then, the light faded, dissipating into nothing. The Taegukji didn't shake, didn't shudder. The only sound was the steady hum of the engines and the breathing of the crew. Jiho looked at the damage report display. It showed 0 damage, not even a fluctuation in shield strength. He turned to Yuna, who was staring at her instruments with wide eyes. "Did it work?" he asked. "Better than we hoped," she whispered. The quantum field didn't just absorb the energy, it redirected it across multiple dimensional planes. The impact force was distributed across literally infinite space. From a physics standpoint, it's like the attack never happened at all. On Thraxis Prime, Commander Silrake stood frozen. His weapon had failed. That wasn't possible. The Empire's plasma lances had broken the shields of every ship they had ever faced. They had shattered planetary defenses. They had ended wars. "Sensor error," he said firmly. "The shot must have missed." "Sir, tracking confirms direct impact," the tactical officer reported. No damage detected on the target vessel. Silrake's scales flushed a darker color, a sign of anger in his species. "Then their sensors are lying. Or ours are malfunctioning. Fire again. Full barrage. All ships." The order transmitted to the 52 vessels of his fleet. In response, thousands of weapons charged simultaneously. Plasma cannons, kinetic accelerators, fusion missiles, particle beams, prast, particle beams. Every weapon system in the Imperial arsenal prepared to fire. On Earth, Admiral Hana watched the tactical display with growing horror. "Captain Quan, you need to retreat. Now. I knee. With respect, Admiral, we can't outrun those ships," Jiho replied. "And running would only make them chase us back to Earth. We stand here, or we lead them home." "Then defend yourself," Hana ordered. "That's a direct command." Jiho nodded to Taeyang. "Understood, Admiral. All shields to maximum. Defensive protocols only. We do not fire back." The Vexrian fleet opened fire. The space between the ships and the Taeguki turned into a storm of destruction. Thousands of projectiles and energy beams converged on a single point. The human ship vanished behind a wall of explosions and light. The barrage continued for 30 seconds. Every ship fired until their weapons needed to recharge. When the light finally faded, Silrake expected to see debris, twisted metal, the remains of a ship that had dared challenge the Empire. Instead, the Taeguki hung in space exactly where it had been. Not a scratch, not a mark. The hull gleamed in the light of the distant star, pristine and undamaged. "Impossible," Silrake breathed. On the Taegukji, the crew let out a collective breath. Yuna was laughing, tears streaming down her face. "It works! It actually works! 5 years of theory and it actually works!" Jiho allowed himself a small smile. Then he opened a communication channel. "Vexrian fleet. This is Captain Quan. We came here in peace. Your attack was unprovoked. We have not returned fire, and we will not. But we will defend ourselves. Please, stand down. Let us talk like civilized beings." The message reached every ship in the fleet. It reached Thraxis Prime. It reached Imperial command centers across a dozen systems. And in every location, beings of various species stared in disbelief at their screens. The humans had survived a full fleet bombardment, without damage, without even trying to dodge. Imperator Vex Thor, supreme ruler of the Galactic Empire, stood in his throne room, watching a live feed of the confrontation. He was old, even for his species. He had ruled for nearly 400 years. In that time, he had never seen anything like this. "Get me Commander Silrake," he ordered. The connection took seconds to establish. Silrake's face appeared on the screen, and Vex Thor could see the confusion and anger there. Imperator, Silrake said, bowing his head. I request permission to engage with full force. This vessel must be destroyed. You just hit it with full force, Vex Thor replied coldly. Did you not? Their defenses are unexpected, but nothing can withstand a sustained assault. I will ram the flagship directly into their hull. If their shields can stop energy, let's see how they handle mass at high velocity. Vex Thor considered this. It was wasteful. It would cost him a good ship and a loyal commander. But it would provide valuable data. And it would show these humans that the Empire did not back down. Proceed, he said. Silrake's expression changed to grim satisfaction. He turned to his crew. Helm, set collision course. Maximum acceleration. All power to forward shields. We're going through them. The flagship of the Vexrian fleet, a massive dreadnought that had fought in 100 battles, turned toward the Teguki. Its engines flared bright as it began to accelerate, 300,000 tons of metal and weapons, moving faster and faster. Jiho watched it come. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this. He had truly hoped they could resolve this peacefully. But the Vexrians weren't leaving him any choice. Range? He asked quietly. 50,000 kilometers and closing, Taeyang reported. 40,000. They're not slowing down, Captain. Yuna turned to Jiho. We could jump away. Use the quantum drive, and they would follow us, Jiho said. Or worse, they'd go looking for Earth. No. We end this here. He looked at Taeyang. One shot. Target their propulsion only. Minimal power. Taeyang's hands moved over his console. Sir, even minimal power from the displacement cannon will. I know, Jiho said softly. But if we don't stop them, they'll keep coming. And next time, they'll bring more ships. This has to be decisive. On Earth, Admiral Hana closed her eyes. She knew what was about to happen. They had tested the displacement cannon on asteroids, on abandoned satellites, on anything they could find. Every test had ended the same way. Total molecular collapse. 30,000 kilometers, Taeyang reported. 20,000. Captain, we need to fire now. Jiho gave a single nod. The kinetic displacement cannon activated. To the naked eye, nothing seemed to happen. There was no beam of light, no explosion, no dramatic display, just a slight shimmer in space, like heat rising from pavement on a hot day. The shimmer touched the Vexrian flagship. Every molecule in the forward section of the ship suddenly forgot how to stay together. The atomic bonds that held matter in its shape simply stopped functioning. The effect spread backward through the vessel at the speed of light. In 3 seconds, a ship 300 meters long collapsed into a cube of compressed matter 10 meters on each side. Every system failed instantly. Every crew member died before their brains could process what was happening. The ship didn't explode. It didn't burn. It just stopped being a ship and became a perfect, geometric solid floating in space. The remaining 51 vessels of the Vexrian fleet stopped their advance immediately. Alarms screamed on every bridge. Captains shouted orders. Crews scrambled to analyze what they had just witnessed. On Thrax's Prime, Imperator Vex Thor stared at the screen in absolute silence. Commander Silrake was dead. His flagship was gone. And the humans had done it with a single shot from a weapon that made no sense. Pull them back, he finally said. Retreat to safe distance. Do not engage. The fleet began to withdraw. But every sensor remained locked on the Teguki. They needed to understand this weapon. This technology. These humans. A new transmission came from the human ship. This time, it wasn't Captain Kwan's voice. It was a woman's voice, speaking calmly and clearly. Vexrian Fleet. This is Dr. Yuna Park, Chief Science Officer of the Teguki. I am transmitting a complete technical breakdown of the weapon we just used. I am showing you exactly how it works and why it was fatal to your ship. We do this so you understand that we did not want this outcome. We came in peace. We defended ourselves only when given no choice. Please, let us stop this now before more lives are lost. The transmission included detailed data, quantum field equations, molecular bond disruption patterns, energy dispersal calculations, everything. In the Imperial Science Division, researchers received the data and began analyzing it immediately. What they found terrified them. The humans weren't just ahead in one or two areas. Their entire approach to physics was different. They had found principles the Empire hadn't even theorized about. Vex Thor read the preliminary reports with growing concern. These humans hadn't just built a powerful ship. They had built something that represented a fundamental shift in technological capability. If they chose to, they could threaten the Empire itself. Send a message to the human vessel, he ordered. Tell them we are withdrawing to discuss the situation. Tell them. He paused, hating the words he was about to say. Tell them we acknowledge their power and wish to negotiate. On the Taegukji, Jiho received the message and let out a long breath. Around him, his crew looked relieved but shaken. They had survived. They had proven themselves. But the cost was 50,000 Vexrian lives aboard that flagship. Acknowledge their message, Jiho said. Express our desire for peaceful dialogue, and send word back to Earth. Tell Admiral Choi that first contact has been made. Tell her it didn't go the way we hoped, but we're still alive. He looked at the cube of compressed matter floating in space, all that remained of a mighty warship. Humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy, not as the peaceful explorers they wanted to be, but as something much more dangerous. The question now was whether they could turn fear into respect, power into partnership, or whether this first contact would become the first battle in a war that would consume them all. 3 days passed in tense silence. The Taegukgi held its position at the border, while the Vexrian fleet maintained a careful distance of 1 million kilometers. Neither side moved. Neither side fired. But both sides watched and waited. On Earth, the other 19 ships of humanity's fleet prepared for the worst. Admiral Hana coordinated with governments around the world, planning evacuation protocols and defense strategies. If the Empire came to Earth in force, humanity would fight. But she knew it would be their last fight. Imperator Vex Thor spent those 3 days reviewing reports, technical analyses, historical records, intelligence estimates. Every piece of information about these humans and their impossible technology. What he learned disturbed him more with each passing hour. The humans had been rated as primitive just 40 years ago, when the Empire's scouts first found Earth. Chemical rockets, nuclear weapons. They were fighting wars among themselves over resources and ideology. The Empire had classified them as pre-contact, not worth the effort of conquest yet. Give them another century, maybe 2, and they would be developed enough to be useful slaves. But the humans had done something unexpected. Instead of following the established path of technological development that every other species had taken, they had gone in a completely different direction. They had started asking different questions. Their scientists had explored quantum mechanics in ways no one else had thought to try. The result was the Taegukgi, and 19 more ships like it. Vex Thor called a meeting of his High Council. 12 of the Empire's most powerful leaders gathered in the throne room, their holographic images surrounding his chair. Military commanders, science advisors, political ministers, all of them with opinions on what should be done about the humans. We must destroy them now, General Korvac insisted. Before they build more of these ships, send the full fleet. Overwhelm them with numbers. And how many ships will we lose in the process? Minister Heltra countered. Our analysts estimate we would need at least 10,000 vessels to guarantee victory. And even then, casualty projections are in the millions. The humans have sent us their technical data. Science advisor Mekton added. I have reviewed it thoroughly. Their technology is not superior to ours, because they are more advanced. It is superior because it is fundamentally different. They have found principles of physics we never explored. Destroying them would not eliminate this knowledge. It would only ensure we never understand it. Vex Thor listened to them argue for an hour. Finally, he raised a hand for silence. What if we approach them differently? The council members looked at him in surprise. Explain, Imperator. General Korvac said carefully. Every species we have encountered, we have conquered. It is our way. It has been our way for 12,000 years. But perhaps these humans require a different approach. Vex Thor pulled up a display, showing the collapsed remains of Silrake's flagship. They destroyed this ship with a single shot, yet they sent us complete technical data, explaining how they did it. Why would they do that? A show of dominance, the general suggested. Proving they have nothing to fear from us. Or, Minister Heltra said slowly, they genuinely want us to understand. So we won't make the mistake of attacking them again. They came seeking peace. Vex Thor continued. They held their position at the border. They did not fire first. They did not pursue our fleet when it retreated. They have done everything a peaceful species should do. Everything, except surrender. You cannot seriously be considering negotiating with them as equals, Korvac said, his voice rising. The Empire does not negotiate with lesser beings. Lesser? Vex Thor fixed the general with a hard stare. They have technology we cannot match. They have ships we cannot destroy. How exactly are they lesser? The question hung in the air. No one had an answer. While the Empire debated, Captain Jiho dealt with his own crisis. The crew of the Taeguki had been on high alert for 3 days. They were exhausted. Tensions were high, and supplies, while not critical yet, would become an issue if this standoff continued much longer. Captain, we're receiving a transmission, the communications officer announced. It's coming from Thraxis Prime, direct from Imperator Vex Thor himself. Jiho straightened in his chair. Put it through. The view screen activated, showing the face of the Empire's ruler. Vex's Thor was tall, even for a Vexrian. With scales that had faded to a pale gray with age, his 4 eyes studied Jiho with an intensity that was unnerving. Captain Quan, Vex Thor said. I wish to speak with you directly. A private conversation, if you will permit it. Jiho glanced at Yuna, who looked as surprised as he felt. I'm listening, Imperator. Not here. Not over an open channel where both our advisors will hear every word and analyze every syllable. I propose a meeting. Face to face. You and I, alone. On neutral ground. That could be a trap, Taeyang whispered, loud enough for only Jiho to hear. Jiho knew that. But he also knew that sitting here, accomplishing nothing, wasn't going to solve anything. Where did you have in mind? There is an abandoned trading station at coordinates I will transmit to you. It has been empty for 50 years. We can both verify that no forces are hiding there before we meet. Just 2 leaders. Trying to find a solution that doesn't end in more death. The coordinates arrived a moment later. Jiho studied them. The station was roughly halfway between the Taeguki's position and Thraxis Prime. It would take half a day to reach it. I need to consult with my superiors, Jiho said. Of course, I will expect your answer within the hour. Vex Thor's image vanished. The argument with Admiral Hana lasted 30 minutes. She was absolutely opposed to the idea. It's too dangerous, Captain. We know nothing about their customs, their protocols. For all we know, this is just an elaborate assassination attempt, and if I don't go, we stay locked in this standoff until someone makes a mistake, and the shooting starts again, Jiho replied. At least this way, we have a chance at real dialogue. A chance at dialogue, or a chance at your death. Maybe both, Jiho admitted. But I'm going anyway. If something happens to me, Taeyang knows what to do. The mission continues. Hana was silent for a long moment. Finally, she sighed. Very well. But Captain, be careful. We need you alive. 12 hours later, Jiho sat alone in a shuttle approaching the abandoned station. Behind him, the Tegukji monitored every sensor reading, ready to jump to his rescue at the first sign of treachery. Ahead, he could see another shuttle approaching from the opposite direction. The station was old, its metal hull pitted and scarred by decades of micrometeorite impacts. The lights were off, the docking ports cold and inactive, but life support was still functional in the main meeting chamber, kept alive by automated systems that had outlasted their creators. Jiho docked his shuttle and made his way inside. The air was stale, but breathable. Emergency lighting flickered on as he walked through the corridors. He found the meeting chamber easily enough, a large room with a conference table and chairs designed for multiple species. Imperator Vex Thor was already there, standing by a window that looked out into space. He turned as Jiho entered, and for a moment, the two leaders simply studied each other. "You came alone," Vex Thor observed. "That was either very brave or very foolish." "The same could be said of you," Jiho replied, taking a seat at the table. Vexus Thor sat across from him. "I have been thinking about your species, Captain Quan. About your technology. About the choices you made when we attacked you. And what conclusions did you reach? That I do not understand you. Every species the Empire has encountered follows a predictable pattern. They develop technology to compete with their neighbors. They fight wars. They conquer or are conquered. Eventually, they encounter us, and they either submit or are destroyed. But you humans, you built ships like the Tegugi for a different reason. Not conquest. Not defense. At least not primarily. You built them to explore. To learn. Why? To. Jiho considered his answer carefully. Because the universe is vast and we are small. Because there is so much we don't know. Because staying on one planet, fighting over scraps, seemed like a waste of our potential. A noble sentiment, Vex Thor said. But nobility does not explain how you developed technology that surpasses our own. Technology that should not even be possible, according to our understanding of physics. We ask different questions, Jiho said simply. Your scientists developed faster than light travel by manipulating gravity and space-time. Brilliant work, truly. But our scientists asked, what if we didn't need to travel through space at all? What if we could exist in multiple points simultaneously? What if we could reach through the quantum foam and come out somewhere else? And you found answers, Vex Thor said quietly. We found possibilities. The Teguki is just the first experiment. We don't fully understand the technology ourselves yet. Half our calculations are based on observations and guesswork. This confession seemed to surprise Vex Thor. You built a weapon you don't fully understand? We built a ship, Jiho corrected. The weapons were an afterthought, added for defense. Our primary goal was always exploration. Yet your weapons destroyed my flagship in seconds. Yes. Jiho met the Imperator's eyes. And I regret that deeply. Those deaths are on my conscience. I came here seeking peace, and 50,000 beings died because of the technology my species created. That wasn't the outcome we wanted. Vex Thor studied him for a long moment. You actually mean that? You genuinely regret killing my soldiers? Of course I do. They were people. They had families, lives, dreams. They died because their commander was too proud to stand down, and I was too new at this to find a better solution. In the Empire, such sentiment would be seen as weakness, Vex Thor said. Perhaps, Jiho replied. But where I come from, it's called compassion. And I think compassion is strength, not weakness. The two leaders sat in silence for a while. Outside the window, stars shone steady and eternal. Neither the human nor the Vexrian spoke, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Vex Thor leaned forward. I am going to tell you something, Captain Quan. something very few outside the highest levels of Imperial leadership know. The Empire is dying. Jiho blinked in surprise. We rule 200 species across 10,000 systems. We have the largest military force in known space. We have wealth beyond measure. And we are dying. Vex Thor's voice was bitter. Esting, what is our 5? Because we have not had a new idea in 3,000 years. Jiho stared at Imperator Vex Thor, trying to process what he had just heard. The ruler of the largest empire in the galaxy had just admitted his civilization was dying. It made no sense. I don't understand, Jiho said carefully. Your empire controls thousands of worlds. Your technology is centuries ahead of ours in most areas. How can you be dying? So. Unsense. May people Texanti. End quote. Jiho said. Vex's Thor stood and walked to the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass. Because conquest does not breed innovation, Captain. It breeds complacency. For 12,000 years, the Empire has grown by absorbing other species. We take their worlds, their resources, their labor, but we do not take their ideas. We crush their cultures, suppress their independence, turn them into copies of ourselves. And in doing so, we have stopped growing. He turned back to face Jiho. 3,000 years ago, we invented the gravity drive. It was revolutionary. It changed everything. We used it to expand across the galaxy. But since then, nothing. We have refined existing technology. We have built bigger ships, stronger weapons, but we have not created anything truly new. We have forgotten how. And then we showed up, Jiho said quietly, beginning to understand. And then you showed up, Vex Thor agreed. A species we dismissed as primitive, wielding technology that makes our greatest achievements look simple. You represent everything the Empire has lost: curiosity, innovation, the willingness to ask questions we never thought to ask. So, what happens now? Jiho asked. You said the Empire doesn't negotiate with lesser beings. But you also said, we're not lesser. So, what are we? Vex Thor returned to his seat. That is the question I have been wrestling with for 3 days. If I declare you equals and offer you a treaty, half my council will see it as weakness. They will plot against me, perhaps even attempt a coup. If I order the destruction of your species, I will lose thousands of ships and gain nothing but ashes. And if I do nothing, I leave a potential threat growing at our borders. Or a potential ally, Jiho suggested. Perhaps. But I need proof that you can be trusted. Words are easy, Captain. Actions are what matter. The Empire needs to see that humanity is more than just powerful weapons. We need to see that your compassion, as you call it, is real. Jiho leaned back in his chair, thinking. What did you have in mind? A test, Vex Thor said. There is a region of space called the Vreth Nebula. It is roughly 6 light-years from here. For the past century, ships that enter that region disappear. Cargo vessels, scout ships, even military patrols. They go in and never come back. We have sent investigation teams. They disappear too. Something in that nebula is destroying our ships, but we cannot determine what. And you want us to investigate? More than investigate. Solve it. If your technology is as advanced as it appears, perhaps you can succeed where we have failed. If you do, you will prove that humanity is useful for more than just destruction. You will prove you can help the Empire, not just threaten it. And if we refuse? Jiho asked. Then we remain at an impasse. And eventually, impasse becomes conflict. Neither of us wants that. Jiho thought about it. The proposal made sense from a diplomatic standpoint, but it also felt like a trap. Send the humans into a dangerous situation where Vexian ships had already failed. If they died, problem solved. If they succeeded, At least the Empire gained something from the relationship. I need to discuss this with my crew, Jiho said. And with my superiors on Earth. Of course. I will await your decision. Vex Thor stood. But Captain, consider this. Your species is at a crossroads. You can hide at your border with your 20 ships, hoping we never attack. You can flee back to Earth and hope we never follow. Or you can take a risk, prove yourselves, and potentially change the future of galactic politics. Back on the Taeguki, the senior officers gathered in the conference room. Jiho explained everything Vex Thor had told him. The revelation about the Empire's stagnation. The proposal about the Vreth Nebula. The test that might determine humanity's future. It's a trap, Taeyang said immediately. They want to get rid of us without taking casualties. Send us into a death zone and let whatever's there finish us off. Maybe, Yuna said thoughtfully. But he has a point about proving ourselves. If we just sit here, nothing changes. We're still potential enemies. At least this way, we might become potential partners. What do we know about the Vreth Nebula? Jiho asked. Yuna pulled up data on her tablet. Not much. It's a standard emission nebula, lots of ionized gas and dust. But the sensor readings are strange. There are spatial distortions throughout the region, energy fluctuations that don't match any known phenomena. Whatever's happening there, it's affecting the fabric of space itself, which means our quantum technology might actually be useful, Jiho said. We work with spatial distortions all the time. That's how our drive functions. Or it means we'll run into something that tears our ship apart, just like it did to the Vexrians, Taeyang countered. Captain, with all due respect, we don't owe these people anything. They attacked us. We defended ourselves. We can leave now, and they probably won't follow. Probably, Jiho repeated. But what if they do? What if they decide humanity is too dangerous to leave alone? We have 20 ships. They have thousands. If they commit fully to destroying us, we'll fight hard, but we'll lose. He looked around the table at his officers. I know this is risky. I know we might not come back, but I think Vex Thor is right. We're at a crossroads. We can be just another species they fear. Or we can be something different. Something new in their experience. A partner. Not a subject or an enemy. The debate continued for another hour. Finally, they put it to a vote. The result was close, but the majority agreed to accept the mission. Jiho contacted Admiral Hana with the decision. She was not happy. Captain, you're gambling with the lives of your entire crew. I'm gambling with the future of our species, Jiho replied. If we succeed, we open the door to peaceful relations with the largest power in the galaxy. If we hide, we guarantee eventual conflict. And if you die, then the other 19 ships avenge us, Jiho said simply. Or they run. Either way. At least we tried. Hana was silent for a long moment. Very well. You have authorization to proceed. But Captain, if this goes wrong, if this is a trap, you get your ship out of there. That's an order. Understood, Admiral. 2 days later, the Taeguki approached the Vreth Nebula. Behind them, at a safe distance, 3 Vexrian observation vessels followed. Vex Thor had assigned them to witness whatever happened, to report back on whether the humans succeeded or failed. The nebula was beautiful from a distance. Swirls of purple and blue gas, lit from within by young stars. But as they got closer, the sensors began to show the anomalies Yuna had mentioned. Space itself seemed unstable here, rippling and distorting, like water disturbed by wind. Entering the outer boundary, the helm officer reported. All systems normal so far. Enderend. Keep scanning, Jiho ordered. Look for any sign of the missing ships. Debris, energy signatures, anything. They pushed deeper into the nebula. The gas grew thicker, reducing visibility. The spatial distortions became more frequent. And then, Yuna gasped. "Captain, I'm reading something. A massive structure, roughly 50 kilometers ahead. It's giving off the same spatial distortions we're seeing throughout the nebula." "On screen," Jiho ordered. The view screen cleared, showing what appeared to be a shipyard, but not a Vexrian shipyard. The architecture was different, more organic in design, and it was old, incredibly old. Parts of it were falling apart, corroded by time and radiation. "I'm detecting ships," Taeyang said, his voice filled with wonder. "Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They're all around the station, just floating there." "Any life signs?" Jiho asked. "I'm not sure," Yuna replied, studying her instruments. "The readings are confused. It's like the ships are there, and not there, at the same time. They're phasing in and out of normal space." "Quantum displacement," Jiho breathed. "Someone tried to create artificial wormholes or dimensional gates. And the experiment went wrong." Yuna nodded excitedly. "That would explain everything. The spatial distortions, the missing ships. They didn't crash or get destroyed. They got caught in the dimensional rifts and trapped between realities." "Can we help them?" Taeyang asked. It was a simple question with complicated implications. If these ships had been trapped for a century or more, their crews might already be dead, or they might be alive, frozen in time, waiting for rescue that never came. Either way, attempting to save them would be incredibly dangerous. But it was also the right thing to do. Jiho opened a channel to the Vexrian observers. "This is Captain Quan. We have found the source of your missing ships. We believe we can rescue them, but it will require us to use our most advanced systems. It will also reveal the full capabilities of our technology to you. Before we proceed, I need confirmation from Imperator Vex Thor that whatever we show you here will not be used against us later." The response took several minutes. When it came, it was Vex Thor's voice. "Captain Quan, you have my word as Imperator of the Vexrian Empire. Whatever you reveal in the process of this rescue will be treated as classified information, shared only with my most trusted advisors. It will not be used to develop weapons against your people. And if we succeed?" Jiho pressed. "If we save these ships and their crews, then I will propose a formal alliance to my council," Vex Thor replied. "A treaty recognizing Earth as an independent, sovereign power, and humanity as equals. I cannot guarantee the council will accept it, but I will try." Jiho looked at his crew. They looked back at him, waiting for his decision. He thought about the crews trapped in those ships, assuming any were still alive. He thought about the risk to his own people. He thought about the future of Earth and humanity's place in the galaxy. "All right," he said finally. "Let's show them what the Taegukji was really built for. Dr. Park, prepare the quantum field generators for maximum dispersal. We're going to stabilize this entire region of space. Helm, position us at the center of the anomaly. Engineering, divert all non-essential power to the field emitters. Captain, if we do this, we'll be vulnerable," Taeyang warned. "Shields will be minimal. Weapons offline. If this is a trap, and someone attacks us now, we won't be able to defend ourselves." "I know," Jiho said. "But that's what trust looks like. And if we want them to trust us, we have to trust them first." The Taegukji moved into position. Around them, the trapped ships flickered in and out of existence. Ghosts caught between dimensions. The crew worked quickly, configuring systems for a purpose they had never been designed for. Using quantum technology, not to fight, but to save. "Systems ready," Yuna reported. "Captain, this is going to take everything we have, and I can't guarantee it will work." "Then let's find out," Jiho said. "Activate the field." The Taeguki began to glow, not with conventional light, but with something deeper, something that existed in frequencies beyond normal vision. The quantum field generators hummed, building power, reaching out into the fabric of space itself. On the bridge, every screen showed different aspects of the operation. Energy readings climbed steadily. The spatial distortions around them began to shift and change, and the trapped ships, those ghostly vessels caught between dimensions, started to become more solid. Field strength at 20%, Yuna called out, her voice tight with concentration. 30%. The dimensional boundaries are stabilizing. Jiho watched the readings carefully. This was why they had built the Taegukji. Not as a weapon of war, but as a tool for exploring the impossible edges of reality. The quantum technology that made their shields impenetrable and their weapons devastating could also be used to heal wounds in space itself. "I'm detecting power signatures from the trapped vessels," Taeyang reported. "Some of them still have active systems. Captain, there might actually be survivors." The possibility sent a wave of determination through the crew. They weren't just rescuing ships. They were rescuing people who had been trapped in a nightmare for decades, maybe longer. "Field strength at 50%, Yuna announced. "The anomaly is responding. I think this is going to work." On the Vexrian observation ships, crews watched in amazement as the human vessel performed what appeared to be a miracle. The spatial distortions that had plagued the nebula for a century were smoothing out, becoming stable. Ships that had been invisible or flickering were solidifying into full reality. One of the observation ship captains opened a channel back to Thraxis Prime. "Imperator, you need to see this. The humans aren't fighting the anomaly. They're healing it." Vex Thor watched the transmitted footage in silence. He had ruled for 400 years. He had seen weapons that could crack planets. He had watched civilizations rise and fall. But he had never seen anything like this. The humans were using their advanced technology not to destroy, but to restore. "Field strength at 70%, Yuna said. "Almost there. Captain, I'm reading life signs. Multiple vessels have living crews aboard. They're in some kind of temporal stasis. When we fully stabilize the field, they'll wake up." "How many ships?" Jiho asked. "At least 300, maybe more." "Captain, these aren't Vexrian designs. These ships are older, different. I think they belong to whoever built that shipyard." The revelation sent ripples through both the Taegukji's crew and the watching Vexrians. If these ships weren't Vexrian, then who did they belong to? And what would happen when their crews woke up after being trapped for so long? "Field strength at 90%, Yuna reported. "Stabilization in 10 seconds. 9. 8. The countdown felt like an eternity. Every person on every ship in the nebula held their breath, waiting to see what would happen. Would the rescue work? Would the trapped crews survive? Or would something go catastrophically wrong? 3, 2, 1. Full stabilization achieved. The quantum field reached its maximum dispersal. For a moment, the entire nebula seemed to freeze. Then, reality snapped back into place, solid and stable. The spatial distortions vanished. The trapped ships stopped flickering and became fully present in normal space. And on those ships, systems began to activate. Lights came on. Engines powered up. And crews that had been frozen in time for 8,000 years began to wake up. On the bridge of the Taeguki, the communications console exploded with activity. Dozens of signals, all in a language the translation computers didn't recognize. Confused voices asking questions, demanding answers. "Get me a translation algorithm working," Jiho ordered. It took 15 minutes for the computers to crack the language. When they did, the first translated message came through clear and cold. "Unknown vessel. Identify yourself. This is Matriarch Sumin Ko of the Karn Collective. You are in Karn space. Explain your presence immediately." Jiho felt his heart sink. The Catharn. He knew that name from the Vexrian databases they had studied. The Catharn had been one of the most advanced species in the galaxy, 8,000 years ago. According to Imperial records, they had been conquered by the Vexrians and absorbed into the Empire. Except they hadn't been conquered. They had disappeared. And now Jiho knew why. They had been experimenting with dimensional technology, just like humanity, and they had made a mistake that trapped them outside of time for 8 millennia. "This is Captain Jiho Kwan of Earth," he transmitted back. "You've been caught in a temporal displacement for approximately 8,000 years. We detected your ships and used our technology to bring you back to normal space. We mean no harm. We're here to help." The response was immediate and hostile. 8,000 years? Impossible. Our chronometers show we've only been here for 3 hours. And you're not Catharn. What species are you? Answer now, or we will open fire. Before Jiho could respond, another signal cut in. This one was in Vexrian, and it came from the observation ships. "Catharn vessel. This is Captain Rilmar of the Vexrian Empire. Stand down immediately. You are surrounded by Imperial forces." It was exactly the wrong thing to say. On the Catharn ships, weapons began to charge. On the Vexrian observation vessels, shields went up. And in the middle of it all, the Teguki sat vulnerable, its systems still recovering from the massive energy expenditure of the rescue operation. "Everyone stop!" Jiho shouted into the comm system, broadcasting on all frequencies. "Nobody fire, please. Just give me 1 minute to explain." Silence fell across the nebula. Hundreds of ships, human, Vexrian, and Catharn, all waiting, all suspicious, all ready for battle. Jiho took a deep breath and began to speak. He told them everything. How the Catharn had been trapped in a dimensional experiment gone wrong. How the Vexrian Empire had grown in their absence, believing they had been conquered. How humanity had discovered the anomaly and chosen to rescue the trapped ships rather than leave them. How this moment could be the beginning of something new, or the start of a war that would consume them all. When he finished, the silence stretched on. Then Matriarch Suman Ko spoke again, her voice different now. Less hostile. More tired. 8,000 years, she said softly. Our families, our civilization, all gone. Not gone, Jiho replied gently. Changed. The galaxy has changed. But you're alive. Your people are alive. You have a chance to be part of the future, not victims of the past. Another voice cut in. It was Imperator Vex Thor, speaking directly from Thraxis Prime. Matriarch Ko, I am Vex Thor, Imperator of what is now called the Vexrian Empire. Captain Kwan speaks the truth. The galaxy you knew is gone. My ancestors conquered your worlds 8,000 years ago. Your people live, but as subjects of the Empire, I cannot change the past. But perhaps we can change the future. Why should I trust anything you say, Vexrian? Suman demanded. Your kind destroyed my civilization, because the humans just proved something important. Vex Thor replied. They proved that power can be used for more than destruction. Captain Kwan could have left you trapped, or worse, he could have used his weapons to destroy your ships entirely. Instead, he saved you. And in doing so, he showed both the Catharn and the Vexrians that there is a different way forward. On the Teguki, Yuna worked frantically at her console. Captain, I'm detecting something. The Catharn ships are scanning us. They're analyzing our quantum technology. Let them look, Jiho said. We have nothing to hide. Minutes passed. Then Matriarch Suman Ko spoke again, wonder in her voice. Your technology. It's similar to what we were trying to develop, but more refined, more stable. How did you achieve this? Trial and error, Jiho admitted. And we had the advantage of learning from your mistake. We saw what happened when dimensional technology goes wrong. It made us more careful. Our quote, we could teach each other, Suman said slowly. Your species has skills we need. And we have knowledge that could help you advance even further. And the Empire? Someone asked. What happens to us? Do we fight for our freedom? Do we accept subjugation? Vex Thor's voice came through again. I have a proposal. One that will likely get me removed from power, but I believe it's necessary. The Empire will offer the Kothern their sovereignty back. Your worlds, your systems, everything that was taken from you will be returned. In exchange, I ask that you consider joining a new organization, not an empire built on conquest, but an alliance built on cooperation. And who would lead this alliance? Suman asked. No one, Vex Thor replied. It would be a council of equals. Vexrians, Catharn, humans, and any other species that wishes to join. We would share technology, resources, and knowledge. We would defend each other from external threats, but no species would rule over another. The proposal hung in space, revolutionary and dangerous. It went against everything the Empire had stood for. It would make Vex Thor powerful enemies, but it also offered something the galaxy hadn't seen in thousands of years. The possibility of real peace. The humans saved our lives, Suman said finally. They had nothing to gain from it. They risked their ship and their crew to rescue people they didn't even know existed. That is the kind of species I want as an ally. She paused. Farm. The Kutharn accept your proposal, Imperator Vex Thor. We will join this alliance as equals. Jiho felt relief wash over him. It had worked. Against all odds, it had actually worked. Earth accepts as well, he said. We came seeking peace and partnership. This is better than we ever hoped for. Then it is decided, Vex Thor declared. Though I suspect I will spend the next several months convincing my council not to execute me for treason. 3 months later, the First Galactic Alliance Council met on a neutral station. Representatives from Earth, the Vexrian Empire, and the newly restored Catharn Collective sat together as equals. Other species sent observers, curious about this new organization that promised to reshape galactic politics. Captain Jiho Kwon stood before the council, no longer just a ship captain but Earth's first official ambassador. Beside him stood Dr. Una Park, who had been appointed head of the Alliance's Joint Technology Research Program. Imperator Vex Thor sat at the head of the table, though he no longer called himself Imperator. He was simply Vex Thor now. One leader, among many. Matriarch Suman Ko addressed the assembly. We gather here today to mark the beginning of something new. For too long, this galaxy has been ruled by fear and force. Today, we choose a different path. We choose cooperation over conquest. We choose to build rather than destroy. The treaty was signed by all three powers. The Galactic Alliance was born. Afterward, Vex Thor approached Jiho privately. Tell me, Captain, when you first crossed into Imperial space with your Dreadnought, did you know it would end like this? Jiho smiled. I hoped, but I didn't know. We built the Taegukji for exploration and discovery. The weapons were added for protection, but they were never the point. The ship's true purpose was always to push boundaries, to reach out into the unknown. And you succeeded, Vex Thor said. You pushed boundaries I didn't even know existed. Political boundaries, technological boundaries, the boundaries of what species can accomplish when they work together. We all succeeded, Jiho corrected. You had the courage to admit the Empire was failing. Matriarch Ko had the wisdom to accept change. We all took risks, and we all gained something better than we had before. 5 years later, the Taegukji led a joint exploration mission into uncharted space. The crew was mixed now, humans working alongside Vexrians and Catharn. They had learned from each other, shared their knowledge, and pushed their technology even further. Taeyang, now promoted to first officer, monitored the sensors as they approached a new system. Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures ahead. They're similar to our quantum drive. Jiho leaned forward with interest. Another species with similar technology? Looks like it. Yuna confirmed. And they're massive. Captain, I think we're about to make first contact again. Jiho smiled, remembering the chaos of his first encounter with the Vexrians. How different things were now. How much they had all learned. All right, people, he said to his mixed crew. Let's do this the right way. First contact protocols. And remember, we're not just representing Earth anymore. We're representing the Alliance. Let's show whoever's out there what we've become. The Teiguki moved forward, not as a weapon of war, but as an ambassador of peace. Behind it, a fleet of Vexrian and Catharn ships followed. No longer rivals, but partners. Together, they reached toward the future, proving that the greatest power wasn't the ability to destroy, but the courage to build something better.